Before Stephen comes on, I'd like to give a brief about Stephen. So it's Mr. Stephen Seshie Cudjoe, who has worked in the telecommunication industry for the past 14 years and is currently the head of National Computer Emergency Response Team, CERT-GH, at the Ghana Cybersecurity Authority. In his previous role, Stephen led the transport and transmission planning team for Vodafone Ghana. In that capacity, he drove key expansions and enhancements in IP transport, content caching, peering, and IP transit relationships. He also served as Vodafone Ghana's representative on the management committee for the SAT-3 and WACS subsea cable consortiums. Stephen brings on board here today solid technical and people management experience spanning network planning, deployment, operations, as well as information security. He is a co-founder and current president of the Ghana chapter of ISC2, that is the International Information System Security Certification Consortium, the body that runs the Certified Information Systems Security Professional Program. He holds an MBA in Engineering Management from Coventry University, UK, and a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electronics Engineering. He majored in Computer Systems from Multimedia University, Malaysia. He also holds professional certifications in networking, security, and project management. So Stephen, without much ado.
Yeah.
Hello, Stephen. Are you there?
Yes, I am. So let me just bring up my slide. Thank you for the introduction. Just a minute, let me bring this up.
So basically, before Stephen presents, he's going to talk about cybersecurity for nonprofits, the role of an industry regulator, which is very, very important because there's all these laws and regulations that we need to be aware of in the way we do our work and how we intend to achieve our objectives. So Stephen will be with us soon.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, you're on.
All right. Okay. So good day, wherever you are. I understand this is an international group, so I'll not take a risk with the time. So my presentation today is titled Cybersecurity for Nonprofits, the role of an industry regulator. So basically the idea is I want to share some practices we have undertaken here in Ghana, how it impacts nonprofits, and then for our colleagues from other countries, potentially how they can carry those experiences back to influence how things happen in their countries. So the outline is as follows. I'll talk a bit about the history of the Cybersecurity Authority of Ghana. I'll then move on to look at the state of cybersecurity for nonprofits. And I'll focus on some of the interventions the CSA has put in place that actually impact the nonprofits. And then I'll touch briefly on some best practices you can take into account as a nonprofit. Now, the Cybersecurity Authority, as we know it now, actually started somewhere in 2017 with the setup of what was called the National Cybersecurity Secretariat. So that has evolved over the years. In 2017, we had the first National Cybersecurity Awareness Program, basically something that the government took very seriously to really get our cybersecurity journey going. In 2018, we signed on to some two key international conventions. The first one is the Budapest Convention. Basically, it looks at how we can collaborate across nations to drive cybersecurity. And then we have the Malabo Convention, which is Africa-centric, looking at data protection and cybersecurity across the continent. Eventually, the Secretariat became the Security Center in 2018. And then in 2019, we looked at our entire cybersecurity policy and strategy again. We had one from earlier, somewhere in 2013, and in 2019 the revision was done. And then that gave birth to what we now call the Cybersecurity Act, which is the major legislation on which the authority derives its powers. So it's a major legislation covering cybersecurity specifically. We didn't have that before. Now, the authority, our vision is to ensure a secure and resilient digital Ghana. And we have a number of mandates. That's what I show on the right. So the heart of it is to regulate cybersecurity activities within Ghana. And then we are responsible for preventing, managing, and responding to threats and incidents. Dr. Mauli just talked about how we respond to incidents. So in my role as the head of CERT, that is my core job. Basically, we are monitoring. Apologies for that. Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. Technology can fail you. That's exactly what has happened.
Yes,
Do you still see the slide?
That part of the world is expected. When we go through, then we are lucky. All right. So please, so you can
do you still have the slide? Can you still see the slide?
No, it's off now.
It's off now. Okay, hold on a second. Let me share my screen again. All right. Are we back?
Yes, please. Yes, we are on. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think I was talking about critical information infrastructure before we lost the connection. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. So basically, CIIs are the category in which we put any service or infrastructure that's essential for our survival. So power or energy, health systems, stuff around even our financial systems, banks, the like. So basically, we as an authority, we have a role to ensure that these assets are given specific attention in terms of protection. So that's what that third bubble is about. The fourth or the next bubble talks about promoting the development of cybersecurity. And this exercise or what we are doing now is exactly one way we do this. We want to be able to share knowledge. We want to be able to bring awareness about cybersecurity to the Ghanaian population, and even abroad. We share across borders. Cybersecurity is across borders. Then we talk about cross-sector engagement. So, we have private, we have public institutions, and we have non-governmental institutions just like you have assembled here. And definitely being able to collaborate across these boundaries is important for being effective as a whole. General awareness about cybersecurity for our schools, for our children, for different demographics is also part of our mandate. And then finally, but certainly not the least, is about collaboration. We can't emphasize that enough. We need to collaborate across countries to be able to be effective. An attack can originate from anywhere in the world, and if you are not able to collaborate, you would find it quite difficult to react or to resolve it. Right, so like I mentioned before, the Cybersecurity Act is essentially the foundation on which the authority is built. This slide shows the main sections. I won't spend too much time on it, but I'll focus on specific ones that might be of interest to NGOs, specifically around protecting children online, and then other online sexual offenses. We'll touch on that a bit later, but basically, this is how the Act looks like. It covers a wide range of issues, including the CERT, how the National Emergency Response Team is supposed to function, how we license service providers, how we respond to incidents, etc. Now, in the Act, there are specific sections that focus on protecting our children online. So sections 62 to 66. So we have specific provisions within the law that deal with the issues that are outlined here. So if you share indecent images of children, there are penalties for that. How we handle sexual abuse for minors. If someone is caught aiding and abetting, dealing in child sexual images and any kind of abuse, cyber stalking, sexual extortion, these are all stuff that the law specifically addresses. And it's actually very important for us as a country and in our maturity in the cybersecurity space. Then the other section, 67 and 68, focuses on other online sexual offenses. So this one will probably focus more on the adults. If someone's intimate images are shared without their consent, and then anyone being threatened about their images being distributed or shared, what we like to call sextortion, whether it's a video or an image, the law also addresses with specific penalties. So now one of the key things we've put in place as an authority is what we call a point of contact or a POC. So essentially it's a way for you to reach the authority to bring to our attention any cybersecurity and you can be an individual NGO, you can get email, you can use WhatsApp, you can use phone call 292 and SMS. You can even go to our website. There's a form there you can use, and then there's a mobile app. On the side, I've put some potential issues that an NGO or a nonprofit might encounter that they would need help with. If your website is somehow defaced, you have a social media account takeover, ransomware attack. We'll talk about that a bit later. Phishing campaigns, you've lost data, your email has been compromised. These are issues you can bring to our attention. And then we have the resources, we have the partnerships to be able to support on most of this stuff. Now, one of the other achievements we can point to because of work as an authority is what we call Global Security Index. Basically, the International Telecommunications Union put together a framework for assessing countries around the world in terms of their cybersecurity maturity. So they've done that using five major pillars. From the top on the left there, you have legal measures. What kind of laws do you have? How can the judiciary deal with cybersecurity issues? Then you have technical measures. Then you have organizational measures. You have capacity development, and you have how you cooperate as well. So of interest to us is the fact that when we started this process or this journey in 2017, we were 10th in Africa and we were 87th globally. So if you see our score, we had just 32.6. But in 2020, when this measurement was done again, we've shot up to 3rd in Africa, and we're now 43rd in the world. Now you ask what has happened. So one of the key ones is definitely the legislation we're able to push through, the fact that we've been able to set up an authority which has a specific mandate for handling cybersecurity. Those are major contributors. It doesn't mean we are there yet. We are definitely gunning to be first in Africa, and we have development areas when it comes to capacity development and also cooperation. So that's where we are now. And one of our flagship programs is what we call the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Every October in the year, we have a month that is dedicated to cybersecurity awareness and programs driven by the authority with full government support. This year, our theme was regulating cybersecurity, a public-private sector collaborative approach. So like I mentioned before, security is not something one person can do alone. You need to collaborate across sectors. You need to collaborate across countries. So it's at the heart of how the authority functions. So in this particular year, the idea was to engage our members in the country alongside how we are going to regulate cybersecurity. I apologize, I can hear some drilling sound. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Okay, so now I'd like to focus on cybersecurity for nonprofits. Now, the question would be, what makes a nonprofit attractive? I think our previous speakers have touched on it somehow, but I think there are two major factors. The first thing has to do with data, the data that you hold as a nonprofit. You have personal records, you have account information, you have donors, data about donors, your staff, your board members, your funding. These are all things that can be of interest to a potential attacker. The second thing that makes nonprofits attractive is the fact that, in general, the readiness level is not as high as maybe a private company or let's say a government agency. Why? Because the budgets are typically limited. They are not really assigned for cybersecurity purposes. Human resource capacity. If the teams are not that big, you're not likely to find a cybersecurity professional in the organization. And then stuff around governance and how controls are run in nonprofits. So these are things that make a nonprofit attractive for attack. Now, if you look at that in that light, I checked on some numbers, and you can find this is a survey from Microsoft and an organization called N10. Basically, they did a survey to see what the posture looks like for nonprofits. You find that over 66% do not do any kind of threat assessments or cyber drills. So meaning they have not simulated an attack and how to respond to it if it does happen. Another 68% or so do not really have any documented policies or procedures in case of a cyber attack. And then the third point, in terms of regular training for staff, you find that almost 60% did not have it. So these are all factors that make it's quite dicey for nonprofits. And these are the kind of things we want to address to make sure that cybersecurity is at the top of mind for nonprofits. And by so doing, they are protected and can then execute on their mandates, whatever that is. Now, the next thing I'll touch on is the threat landscape. What are you exposed to as a nonprofit? Typically, it's quite broad, but I focused on these three. Data theft. That's someone getting into your network without your knowledge and picking valuable data off your servers or your computers. Dr. Bright just did a demonstration of how even a printer gave him a toehold into an organization. So there's valuable data, like we already said. So if that data gets into the public domain, that's reputational damage you are looking at. Ransomware, which is essentially a malicious actor entering your network and then locking up your files and telling you that if you don't pay me so and so millions of dollars or so, I will not give you back your data. That can bring your organization to a halt. You are going to lose sensitive data because sometimes even your agreement to pay is not a guarantee that you actually get the data back. The financial impact on your organization is huge. Even if you decide to pay, it's huge money. And the damage to your reputation is not something you can really quantify. And then the third thing you are likely to be exposed to is unplanned downtime. Unplanned downtime means you lose your systems or your services to the people you are serving. So it could be a malware infection, viruses, or any kind of malware entering your network and shutting your systems down or causing it or making it impossible for your team to function. Denial of service. Maybe you use a website for interacting with your donors or interacting with your constituents. For some reason, someone decides to attack it. It's no longer available. That brings your service to an end or to a halt until you resolve it. So this is how the threat landscape looks like. And going on from this, I'll touch on how or what the CSA is doing and how you can leverage that as a nonprofit to improve your posture and to keep your business running or to keep your objectives going. So I'll touch on three main things. The first one is around public awareness and education campaigns. It's key for us as an authority because our ability to achieve our vision of a secure and resilient digital Ghana is based on our people being aware of what cybersecurity is and how to actually be safe and secure. So one of the initiatives we have is what we call a Safer Internet Day. It's actually done in partnership with NGOs like yourself. And the objective is to drive safe and positive use of digital technology for our children. Africa has one of the youngest populations. And the earlier we start training our young people on how to be safe online, the better for us. It can't be emphasized enough. Advisory and alerts is one of the key stuff we do as CSA, and that even comes directly from what I see as head of the emergency response team. We monitor the kind of calls we get in terms of complaints or the issues that are reported, as well as our interaction with other global bodies. And we see issues, and in Ghana, there are things we see from time to time. In this year, we've released a number of advisories and alerts. I've listed three of them. Bank fraud. I'm sure some of you would have heard where people get calls from someone supposedly from their bank. They tell them some story and somehow manage to extract from them their ATM card numbers, the PINs, and then they go into the accounts and empty the bank account. We've also had cases of people's WhatsApp accounts being taken over, whether individuals, organizations. Others are suffering some form of extortion because they are tricked into revealing their nudity online in a call. They think they are talking to someone they know, but in fact, it's someone who has hijacked someone's account. They record them and then they come back and tell them, if you don't pay me, I'll release it. And then you have shopping scams. Because of our digital nature now, there's mobile money, there are a lot of online shops and we can pay easily. There are people out there that also create fake shops. You pay the money, but nothing is actually delivered. So as an authority, these are some of the things we see, and these are the things we typically alert about so that the public is aware and then takes their necessary steps. Now, if we look at child online protection specifically, there are a number of things also happening there. Some of the organizations I'm sure would probably know about them, especially if they are in Ghana. One of the things we do is to continue to drive awareness about the Cybersecurity Act. So you remember I talked about some sections in the Act that focus specifically on children being safe online. So not everybody knows about it, and therefore it's our job to keep telling you, to keep reminding you about this, so that everybody knows. If a child is cyberbullied, a child is abused sexually online, all these are stuff that there's a law for, and you can take advantage of that law to seek redress. Closely related to that is what we call a national child online protection framework. Basically, what this seeks to do is to sort of get a proper framework, a complete framework around how we protect children, because previously the laws we had were scattered. They were not really focused on children, so and their online safety per se. So at this point in time, we now have the Cybersecurity Act. We're now driving that in partnership with an organization called the We Protect Global Alliance, and we are focusing on policy and governance, criminal justice, how we handle victims, industry collaboration, communication, and even media to make sure that children are safe. We take the message also to schools, secondary schools, universities, and the like. And the whole idea is awareness, awareness, awareness. This year, for the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, there was an innovation into we introduced a cybersecurity challenge. Essentially, it's a quiz where we after educating all the awareness we've done, we ran a quiz to see how our children are coming up. So it was a quiz, very competitive, very interesting. So look forward to more of this in subsequent celebrations, and we look forward to partnership with more NGOs as such. Now, one thing which also will be very interesting to the NGOs based on what we've heard so far this morning is also around, okay, fine, if you need to protect yourself, it means you need to be looking for some kind of service provider, or you need to be interacting with some kind of cybersecurity professional. How do you know you're dealing with the right kind of people, the right kind of caliber? So within the Act, we have a provision for accrediting and licensing service providers, establishments, and professionals. And basically, the whole idea is this: CSA will be playing a gatekeeping role, making sure that the right kind of organizations are operating in the country, the right people that are offering cybersecurity services are actually accredited. They have been vetted, and they can be trusted. Right? If you bring someone into your organization to do some work for you, they should do that work without taking your data away. For instance, they shouldn't come and capture some sensitive information and go and give it out. The kind of processes they are using within the work they are doing should be standardized, and make sure that a certain quality of work is delivered, so that when they say they've come to assess your environment and it is safe, you can be sure that it is safe, and not that the very next day some attack happens. We're also trying to make sure that there's a way to take out incompetent providers and professionals from the system, because we want to be sure that our critical information assets are truly protected. Another objective is really to support businesses and governments to be able to identify these credible providers, establishments, and professionals. And also making sure that they are in good standing as they work. So with this as a factor or deploy, then you are sure that as you make the effort to secure your non-profit, you are using the right people, and you're actually getting the value for the investment you are making. Now, here I touch on a few examples of the law or the act being put to work. So here, a phone repairer, picked somebody's nudes off her phone and posted it. He got a 14-year jail term. So that's the law working effectively. And we encourage that when you suffer any of such, please report it and let the authorities support you to get redress. Here's another technician also took someone's, he was a CCTV operator and took someone's photos, videos, and posted it. He got a 10-year jail term. So that's how stringent the law is about these things. And it's in our interest as a country to make sure it's effective to make our environment safe. So I'm going to conclude with some tips or best practices that you can keep in mind as a nonprofit and even as an individual. And because some of the previous speakers have touched on some of them. I won't belabor the point, but I'll touch on a few of them. Let me start from social engineering on the right and the individual. So I talked about the scam around banks or people purporting to be calling from banks. So it's a technique called social engineering, and basically the idea is the malicious actor will play on your human instincts, where you tend to be helpful. Someone asks you a question, you tend to answer. You think you're being helpful, you're protecting yourself, but in actual fact, they're exploiting that to then take off sensitive information of you and then use it against you later. So you need to be alert when you receive phone calls from people that you don't know, or even when they call and say they are calling from your bank or from some institution asking for sensitive information, you have to pause. Usually the best thing for you to do is tell them thank you, you check yourself, call back your organization, call back your bank, and check whether they actually need you to do something, and go there yourself and do it. Don't hand off sensitive information about your accounts, your ID cards, personal information to people on phone calls. That's how people get exploited. The other thing we can do is really also around the tools we use, the laptops and PCs we use. Most of us would use Windows, or some of us use MacBooks. These, because it's software and things are always changing, new applications come out, and some of them have flaws or bugs in them, as we call them. The producers of this software frequently release what we call application updates. The whole idea is they study the application, realize that, oh, there's a flaw here, let's provide a patch, or let's provide a fix for it, and they share it. And your laptop or your machine needs to be getting this update so that you're not exposed to any of these flaws. Some of us, maybe because we are watching our data, we don't enable it or we block it. Even for our phones, the same thing applies. So it's a best practice for you to be sure that your phone, your operating system patches are always up to date, because that's the only way you can reduce the risk level. We can also talk about due diligence. So as an organization, if you are bringing in people to work for you, you need to conduct due diligence. You need to be sure they are who they are. You need to have policies in place to vet people that work on your systems, so that you don't lose data or you don't lose critical information because someone has come to work in your environment and you didn't check whether they can actually do the job or not. There are a number of technical solutions, but I'm sure there are other speakers that will focus on them that you can have. There's best practice. There are firewalls, there are intrusion detection systems. That's what the IDS stands for. For an NGO or a non-profit, you may not have all the resources, but at least if you are able to keep your personal machines up to date, you practice the cyber hygiene that Madam Withi talked about, you reduce your risks quite significantly. And then in terms of policies and technical controls, these are stuff you can also look into. She also mentioned some of the frameworks you can look at. She mentioned the NIST, she mentioned the ISO 27001. These are frameworks that help you with technical control and compliance. So as an authority, we are here to support you. Definitely reach out to us over the mediums I shared, but if you need to just correspond with us in general terms, contact information is here. You can call us, you can send us an email, you can visit our website. We release some of the advisories that we put out there, we put them there. The Cybersecurity Act is there for you to download as well. You can read the whole act. If you have questions, give us a call, we'll help you out. And we are here for you. Our job is to secure Ghana digitally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I mean, that is a very detailed presentation. You are doing so much. I was actually at your last event at Fiesta Royal Hotel, I think, which was the cyber awareness program, cybersecurity awareness program that you did in October. Beyond those of us in the room at the time, and maybe some of your network people, I would say that many people don't know about all these great things that you are doing. So during your awareness week, beyond the conference, what else do you do to create awareness about even the Cybersecurity Act, for instance? You give alerts. Is it to subscribers? How do we, subscribe to, these alerts, for instance? And then also, I mean, all the things that you do, I'm sure it's applicable to most of the West African countries and the participants who have registered, or even those outside West Africa that can reach you. So we know we can reach you, but on the key points is the awareness. What is the agency, the authority puts in place to get more people to become more aware of the act, and also what the threats are out there that they should be, wary of.
Okay. So thank you for the question. So what we are doing is really a combination of things. So first, when we release some of these alerts and advisories, it typically triggers media engagements. So you'd hear us on radio, or sometimes you see us on TV. So that's one way we get through. There are always ongoing engagements with the schools. So we have multiple programs throughout the year where we go to educational institutions and engage them. And then the media coverage, they also gives us an opportunity to educate people and keep up the awareness. Definitely, we can't say we are doing, or we can cover everybody 100%. So we have partnerships. There are professional bodies that we work with. We partner them to also drive the awareness. So there are professional bodies in cybersecurity, people like ISC², people like ISACA, and a few others. And basically, because those bodies regulate the profession, they also have a duty to support this kind of initiatives. So it's an ongoing thing. It never ends. We keep going. And definitely, if you have, I mean, even an engagement like this is one way we support, because we get invitations like this practically every other week. We are in an engagement like this, presenting, sharing what the Cybersecurity Authority is about and what we do. So we are definitely available. If you have other engagements within the space where you feel you'd want some other angle, or you want us to come and speak, definitely let us know. An officer or a representative will be there to support you.
Okay, so just a quick one. I have a question from one of the participants. But before then, I just want to bounce off to our next speaker, Ebuka from Meta, which is Facebook. So, Ebuka, are you on? Can you give us a thumbs up or raise your hand if you're on, so that when we wrap up, we'll come straight to you. Okay, so whilst we wait for Ebuka, I have a question from the chat. So it says, all that has been said, I can say my organization has no cybersecurity strategy or mitigation plan, and that we are just open to hacking. What would you advise a non-cybersecurity person to do at the minimum to protect its infrastructure, especially even using the internet modem? Stephen. All
right. Okay.
This is a very general question.
Yes, there's a general question. So, but let's see. I'm not sure what the size of an organization is. If it's an individual, then
I would say it's a typical CSO, as you know, because majority of the participants are actually from non-profits.
Yeah, so small setups, not very advanced networks or with infrastructure, that kind of thing, right?
Correct.
All right. So I think for that kind of environment, the first thing will probably start with your personal device. You need to adopt practices that would limit your device.
Come back to say a personnel of 10 people.
I'm sorry?
A personnel of 10 people, an organization with about 10 people.
10 people. Is it a networked environment?
I already know.
Okay.
But it says internet modem, so it's probably not networked.
Okay, so basically probably using any of the mobile service providers, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so the basic thing is at least have the devices that your team is using properly set up. So properly set up means, for example, even making sure that they are up to date in terms of the operating system. if you're using Windows, make sure that you get access to run all the updates. If you can't do that, look for an IT professional that can, usually just a setting within the operating system. They'll check for you so that when you connect to the internet, all those updates are downloaded. That's one thing. Make sure you have something like an antivirus installed, because quite a good number of the malware that are out there, if you have a good antivirus, you can stop them in their tracks. And Windows actually has it built in. If you're using something like a Mac, they also have an equivalent. So it's a good investment to have an up-to-date antivirus on your device, because it can help reduce some of these exposures. Then you can look at how you use passwords. So your device should not be left open where, so once someone presses the power button, they can access the device. You should set a good password. There are resources for setting good passwords. A good password would have a combination of capital letters, small letters, numbers, special characters, and you should be looking at not less than 10 characters, sometimes even 12 in there. You don't use a password called password, or your wife's name, or your children's name. Those are names that a determined hacker can easily guess and apply and get into your system. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing is also your let's say your behavior online, right? One way you can get compromised is visiting malicious websites. So you need to be careful what kind of websites you visit. If you are an NGO and maybe you have specific partner organizations, you have your email, try and stay there. Don't go visiting questionable websites. And basically, because once there's malware there, if your device is not protected properly, it can get on. And these days, the malware are pretty advanced. They can get on, do their damage, and then you only notice it weeks or months after, when the damage is long done and there's nothing you can do about it. Email practices you can also look at. There's something we call phishing. We touched on it in one of the slides. Phishing is basically someone sending you an email purportedly from a reputable organization asking you to take some action. And basically they apply what I was describing as social engineering. They try to make you click a link to take you to some website. But in actual fact, once you click that link, it downloads some kind of malware onto your device. So when you get any email, first, you have to check whether this mail is from someone who is actually a contact. And sometimes, because of, I can reference the demo Dr. Bright just shared. Even when you see a name that you know, you just use your mouse and hover over the name, you would see the actual email address. So let's say Stephen Cudjoe-Seshie sent you an email. You can hover the mouse, and if you see anything else other than stephen.cudjoe-seshie@csa.gov.gh, then you know someone has spoofed it, or someone is actually sending it from somewhere else. Once you click on it, you're actually exposing yourself. So that is a certain awareness you need to develop. When you see an email, don't just click on it. Don't just download any attachment from anybody at all. Check and be sure. Even when, for people you think you know, you should be sure you're expecting an attachment before you download, because these are all vectors for putting malware on your machine. So we can go on and on, but usually if you can follow these, you cut out a lot of the risk you're exposed to. So I hope that helps.
Just one last thing. There was something very intriguing and revealing in your presentation about CSOs who, you did a poll on them. Is it possible you can just scroll to that slide quickly?
Back to that slide, okay. Let's see.
So it was about
the statistics, is it?
Training. They don't have any systems in place. They don't have any. This is it. Yes. So I mean, this is very revealing, and it shows how our level of the seriousness we attach to cybersecurity. In all of this, how can the authority, help CSOs to come up to speed? For instance, in developing policies and procedures, is there an opportunity for CSA to even do trainings for civil society as part of your corporate social responsibility or part of your awareness week, if you can have a program in there. Because, I mean, this statistics is quite dire, and I'm sure it's reflective of almost all the CSOs in Africa. And most of it has to do with the cost of developing, these documents, undertaking these drills and exercises. And it will be, good to know if, once you came up with those results, what's did you have any intervention in place to help us to counter this results, to bring us to speed and reduce the numbers where it says the no-nos are very plenty. If we can make it a bit more yes. So is there any plans that you have in place? And I mean, when you saw the statistics, how did you feel?
It was quite scary to see, and definitely I can't say we have that plan as I speak, but it actually came to mind when Madam Muti was speaking. It's something we can do, so it's something I'm taking back. We have a team that looks at what we call technology standards. So it's something we can do. We can come up with guides. Actually, that's the team for this kind of thing. That team's job is really to put together standards for organizations to follow in terms of how they configure their systems, how they are setting up their networks, or policies to follow. So doing something like putting together guide documents and then running workshops for an association like yours is definitely not out of our reach. I think it's something we can easily put together. So I'll take that away as an action or a request that we can put together. If it doesn't happen before the awareness month next year, definitely I'm sure we can fit it somewhere in the year and start and let it roll out. Yeah. So I think it's not beyond us.
I think it's a lot idea that we put something together. We can even do something virtual like this and then orient members on how to keep safe online. All right, Stephen, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
This has been really good. I mean, it is intriguing and revealing as well. And we hope that we'll be in touch more
Sure.
and then also see how we can up our game on cybersecurity. So thank you so much. Thank you.
I wish you a good session. Thank you.
All right, cheers.